There's a lot of new secrets tucked away in the recent trailers and social media reveals for Hogwarts Legacy, so I'm going to take you through 10 of them, which I think you'll enjoy. And let's first start with some hidden secrets in the Gryffindor common room, because if we zoom in over the banister and take a look just right of the fireplace, we can just about make out a golden snitch darting around the room, which was the third and smallest ball used in Quidditch that was worth 150 points, with the game only ending after it was caught. And this has got me thinking, perhaps this is some sort of collectible we'll need to catch ourselves in game, or perhaps when we get close to it, it'll lead us to a secret location or item, because the Gryffindor snitch is actually in a different location in the common room comparatively to the state of play trailer, so it's clearly moving around freely, or if we get close to it. Now there's another small detail here at the back of the common room where we can briefly see the outline of what looks to be a howler that seems to be giving a student a little bit of an earful, and the purpose of howlers of course being red letters that deliver a message expressing significant displeasure or anger in a manner which standard writing could not adequately convey, the letter often being portrayed by the voice of the one who wrote it, as we saw Ron receiving one from his mother in the Chamber of Secrets. And speaking of Ron Weasley, there's a poster of his favourite Quidditch team, the Chudley Cannons, hanging on the notice board with the number 21 next to it. This could potentially mean we may be attending Hogwarts in 1892, as that was the last year the Chudley Cannons won their last Quidditch League Cup title, and also when Albus Dumbledore attended Hogwarts and was sorted into Gryffindor House. Now, as exciting as that sounds, Troy Levitt, a developer who worked on Hogwarts Legacy, did mention on Twitter that he reported this bug as a lore bug when he was still working on the project. So I think that confirms to me that the year of the game does indeed take place in 1890, as noted on the Daily Prophet article in the State of Play trailer, and not 1892, thanks to this Chudley Cannons poster. There's also another sneaky thing hanging on this notice board, which I don't believe anyone's chin wagged about yet, and that's the word Ilky, with a picture of presumably a seeker diving for the snitch. Now, this was a Quidditch team established in the 12th century, as noted in the book Quidditch Through the Ages, and the team became quite famous for conceding 42 goals in one game against another team from Yorkshire. So some very subtle and detailed world building there by the devs. I think that's really great to see. Now I'll tell you what else is pretty great to see, and that's this recent reveal of a student pinging a quick spell at the glass window in the Slytherin common room that overlooks the Black Lake. This was revealed as a teaser in the recent in-game field guide, which I'll walk you through shortly, but this quick clip all stems from what Chandler Wood, the community manager of Hogwarts Legacy, said in a Wizarding World trailer back on September the 1st. Listen to this.
The Slytherin common room windows look out onto the Black Lake's murky depths. Just don't tap the glass.
So even though we're not shown to break the glass here, I think this is a small Easter egg prompt where we may be able to encourage the giant squid that lives in the Black Lake to come have a little gander at some bright lights that seem to be consistently hitting the windows, depending upon how many times we actually spell spam it. There's also a telescope next to the window which doesn't offer us any interaction prompts when we approach it, comparatively to other objects that we've seen do so in the trailers. However, there's 3 windows here in the Slytherin common room, and I want to bring your attention to another telescope on the left-hand window and not the one on the right that we've seen in the field guide clip trailer. And I reckon this is a telescope we'll be able to interact with to look out onto the Black Lake, because we can already see fish moving in that field clip guide, so it would make a lot of sense to me to have this as an interactable world mechanic where it isn't just for cosmetic show within the common rooms, as we have had this telescope mechanic appear in such games as GTA, Red Dead Redemption and Assassin's Creed, so I can definitely see it happening here, especially as we also see another telescope in Ravenclaw Tower, which would be the perfect opportunity to survey the Hogwarts grounds and beyond. Now, speaking of Ravenclaw, their house common room, as we just mentioned, is located in Ravenclaw Tower, and thanks to the recent video tour from the Avalanche software team, we can have a educated guess where that may be from the clearly identifiable window panes, as well as their shape and the distinctive skylight tower that's evident in this hippogriff clip from the State of Play trailer. In fact, I do want to bring your attention further to the clip of the Ravenclaw student walking into this skylight section of the tower, and if you just notice the stairs at the back there, they disappear further up into the roof, which says to me that we'll be able to head outside onto the ramparts. And let's bring that outside clip of the Ravenclaw Tower from the State of Play trailer and pop it next to this one. And what this looks like to me is the entrance to that skylight staircase here in the tower. On top of that, thanks to the pre-order Thestral footage that we were shown a few months ago, we know it's possible to fly around the Hogwarts castle freely. So could Ravenclaw students actually enter their Ravenclaw common room by flying up to the tower itself, getting onto the ramparts and then heading down that skylight staircase? And if so, what if you're not in Ravenclaw House and then get yourself up to that balcony? Can you sneak your way into that common room that way? Well, I think that remains to be seen, but speaking of sneaking around, Adrian Ropp, head of story at Avalanche Software, said back in 2020 that how should this character's voice change when drinking Polyjuice Potion, and he was referring to in-game development here. So we already know that we can actually brew potions in our room of requirement, and perhaps after we locate this Polyjuice Potion recipe, if they've decided to include it in-game, then we'll be able to sneak into other common rooms just like Harry and Ron did in the Chamber of Secrets. And if that's the case, staircase, and we can't enter through this Ravenclaw Tower balcony. We'd have to go through the front entrance by answering a riddle, as confirmed by the community manager Chandler Wood. In fact, you can just about make out two students sitting around waiting for the common room door to open, as they've clearly answered the riddle incorrectly. Great details here again. And if you're enjoying the video so far, please do leave a very swift like down below. It really does help me out on YouTube, so thanks very much. And while you're down there, I'm also running a Hogwarts Legacy game giveaway. You just need to be a subscriber to enter, and the link is in the pinned comment, so good luck. Now, as we're heading along the Hufflepuff common room, our student here runs past a very interesting portrait which is very easily missed on the left-hand side. In fact, I reckon this may be the Hogwarts kitchens for two reasons. The first being that the kitchens were located directly under the Great Hall, where after you took the staircase downstairs, you'd come across a broad stone basement corridor, which was brightly lit and decorated with food-themed paintings, which is what we have here. And secondly, the route to the kitchens is also the same route that you would take to go to the Hufflepuff common room, which we can also see from this clip. That's where that student is heading towards. Now, the portrait itself, apart from being the appropriate size for a person to pass through, it is similar or slightly smaller comparatively to the Fat Lady Gryffindor common room portrait, as well as it having steps beneath it. And because of all this, it's certainly worthy of our attention in game. This is also compounded by the fact that we can just about make out what looks to be a painting of a bowl of fruit, which is exactly what we want to see, because if you tickled the pear in the bowl itself, then the kitchen painting would swing open and we'd be inside the kitchens. And thanks to the State of Play preview back in March, we already know what the thematic design is like inside, and I think it looks great. But speaking of secret entrances, Hufflepuff's common room is no exception, as to get inside, you need to tap the barrel 2 from the bottom, middle of the second row, to the rhythm of Helga Hufflepuff, which we can actually see the animation for in the developer Autodesk presentation back in March. Once inside though, we can have a lovely look at Helga Hufflepuff herself hanging over the fireplace with her famous cup in her hands, and this jolly looking fellow who's actually called the Fat Friar. He's the resident ghost of the Hufflepuff house and was taught by Helga Hufflepuff herself. Unfortunately, he was executed because senior clergymen at the time, which was back in the 10th century, grew suspicious of his ability to cure the pox affliction by poking peasants with his stick, obviously, as one. So hopefully we can hear that story from himself in game. There's also this green flue powder flame torches dotted around the common room, which confirms to me that we'll be able to fast travel back into our common rooms by utilizing the flue network, as confirmed by Hogwarts Legacy on Twitter. So no need to answer multiple riddles or knock the doors every time you head back to your common room, unless you want to, of course. Now, it has already been confirmed on the Hogwarts Legacy FAQ webpage recently that there will be no Quidditch in this game, which is a bit of a shame, truth be told, as I absolutely loved the Quidditch World Cup game back in the day, but I think it makes sense to have it as a future installment down the line, pending the success of this title, as it would be a lot of work to create. But we already have the flying animations and snitches in the game already, so it does look promising for potentially in the future. That said, I think we'll be able to partake in mini games within Hogwarts Legacy itself, excluding Quidditch, as a way to feel more immersed in this open world RPG wizarding world. We saw a wizard chessboard in a few of the common rooms so far. In fact, you can actually see the Queen moving on the chessboard in the Slytherin common room as the student walks past. Now, if we can indeed play chess in this game, and if we zoom in, it does look like the developers have taken the detail to another level and matched the models to what we see in the Philosopher's Stone or Sorcerer's Stone, depending upon where you are in the world, but I don't think they'll perform all the same battle maneuvers and animations once you successfully take a piece. I'd be very impressed if they did, and I would love that, but I'm also going to manage my own expectations there. Incidentally, it's not a new thing for games to allow you to play games within the game itself, kind of Inception style, if that makes sense. And to give you an example, Assassin's Creed most recently allowed you to play an all-log dice game and defeat specific NPC players around the world, where you'd earn unique rewards for doing so as a kind of incentive. So I wouldn't be surprised if Avalanche have implemented something similar here in their game, as I could see us getting a rare cosmetic for defeating a grumpy wizard at chess in the Three Broomsticks pub in Hogsmeade. But speaking of item interaction, I do want to bring your attention to these Armillary spheres, which have appeared very frequently throughout the recent gameplay footage, and that's for good reason, because they also feature heavily in the films as well, specifically in Dumbledore's office in the Chamber of Secrets. These Armillary spheres are models of the objects in the sky on the celestial plane and are very important to astronomy, which by extension is important to Hogwarts Legacy and the wizarding world. In fact, when we walk up to interact with one of these spheres in game, watch how the wand is withdrawn and equipped when doing so, which is very interesting indeed. But perhaps this is just a cosmetic and stationary object we can interact with in game, just to kind of add to that immersion, or perhaps all of these spheres need to be activated to unearth some sort of secret hidden away in the game. Certainly worth a thought considering their importance in the wizarding world. Now, speaking of important, we'll be able to reference this new field guide throughout the game, which has been officially announced on Twitter, and according to Chandler Wood, this is the unauthorized in-game guide that is a way of showing us, the players, the variety of different things we'll be able to do around Hogwarts. Now, I recently went through this whole guide, page by page, in a full breakdown video that I'll pop at the end of this video if you're interested, but at the risk of repeating myself, there is a few secrets hidden away in this book that I do want to bring your attention to in this video. On page 3, we are informed that this classroom was made for mischief, like meddling with Professor Hecate's Hebridean Black Skeleton, and that's in reference to our Defense Against the Dark Arts classes. But Professor Hecate and her levitation of skulls aside, there's 4 spells scribbled at the top of the page, those being Protrificus Totalis, the full body bind curse, as well as Stupefy, the stunning spell, which we've already seen showcased in gameplay so far. However, the 2 we haven't seen yet is Rictus Sempra and Ridiculous, the former being a tickling charm that causes the victim to buckle over in laughter, Harry famously hitting Malfoy with this one in their Chamber of the Secrets dueling club, and the latter, Ridiculous, is a Boggart banishing spell, which was a charm that was used to defeat Boggarts, which, if you didn't know, was a shape-shifting non-being that took on the form of its observer's worst fear. So I wouldn't be surprised if we come across some Boggarts hidden away in chests that we loot around the world, as well as learning the Rictus Sempra spell to cast on unsuspecting enemies as a distraction so we can sneak on past. Now, speaking of distractions, we'll be able to visit the village of Hogsmeade in this game, and thanks to a recent PlayStation pre-order exclusive trailer, we'll be able to set up our own shop and trade resources for income. But that said, there's a few famous places you may recognise and want to visit first, one of those being Zonko's Joke Shop, which thanks to the field guide has informed us that we'll be able to purchase a lot of fun cosmetic items such as this can of mystery, as well as pepper imps, which we can see scribbled on the page here. These allowed consumers to breathe fire, and I'm very much hoping to see them in the game. There's also reference to cauldron cakes and fizzing whizbees on this page, but on top of that, in the room of requirement, we can also make out a box of fudge flies, as well as a chocolate frog box on the desk as well. Now, all of these items are actually sold exclusively at Honeydukes and not at Zonko's Joke Shop as far as I'm aware, and it hasn't yet been confirmed if we can enter and shop at Honeydukes, even though we can visually see the shop in the Hogsmeade trailer. But I imagine we will be able to, and new PlayStation owners will be able to compete against that shop in particular for customers and revenue, I'm sure. But further on in this trailer though, there is a statue here which looks like Salazar Slytherin from the Slytherin common room, with a nice zoom in and focus on his empty hand comparatively to the same statue which is actually grasping a skull back at Hogwarts. So perhaps we'll need to place a skull in Salazar's hand to fulfill this quest, or perhaps something else of our choosing that alters the quest reward, or perhaps nothing at all. Lots of perhaps there, we're just going to have to wait and see. Interesting fact here though, Hermione did mention that a pub in Hogsmeade, presumably the Hogshead Inn, served as the human headquarters for the 1612 Goblin Rebellion, and because of this it is listed as a site for historical sorcery, and that's what I think this scene here is all about. We're sat in the Hogshead pub in Hogsmeade chatting to a goblin about Ranrock's rebellion for further intel, and with the sign clearly pointing to the Hogshead pub in the recent trailer, I'm very certain it will be a location we're able to visit in game. Now, some of you will be thrilled to know that Peeves will be appearing in this game as well. He's played a big part in the books, but unfortunately was omitted from the films. Now, Peeves is the most notorious and troublesome poltergeist in British history, and unlike his ghost counterparts in the castle, such as the Fat Friar, Professor Binns, and Nearly Headless Nick, he has a physical form and can become invisible at will. He's said to have popped into existence with the founding of Hogwarts, as he is a pure manifestation of the students' mischief, and since then, he's continued to bring absolute mayhem to the castle up until 1876, so 15 years or so before this game takes place, where caretaker Rancorous Carp decided to devise a cunning and elaborate trap to remove him from the castle. Of course, that trap failed, with Peeves managing to get hold of several crossbows in the process and holding the castle to ransom, with everybody having to be evacuated for 3 days. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this story is because the headmistress of the day, Professor Eupraxia Mole, agreed to sign a contract with Peeves that in exchange for the weapons, he would have a new custom hat made by Madame Bonhabille, who was a French and world-renowned hat maker based in Paris at the time. And if we look at this new footage released by Avalanche, you can see that very hat bobbing around on his head as he very smugly juggles what looks like to me Quidditch bludger bats which are on fire. So another fantastic attention to detail from the developers here, and as the in-game guide says, avoid Peeves or don't. But I'll tell you what I won't be avoiding, and that's Sebastian Sallow's Slytherin Dark Magic questline. Now, Avalanche are currently in the process of teasing their house companion questlines on Twitter at the moment, which are optional for us to complete in-game. They're kind of like secondary quest lines that complement the overarching main storyline per se, and if we do decide to undertake Seb's Dark Magic questline, we'll come to understand why he's pursuing it so fiercely, and as he says in his own words,
a spell that could save your life shouldn't be unforgivable.
which is quite the moral conundrum for sure. In fact, thanks to this teaser, we now know that Seb has a twin sister called Anne, who we can presume is this witch earlier on in the trailer due to their physical similarities, and she is said to be suffering from a mysterious and debilitating curse, which Seb is convinced that her last hope for a cure lies in the dark arts. Now, it's open to interpretation what this curse is, but one famous hereditary and non-curable curse that does pop into mind within the wizarding world is the blood curse that killed Draco Malfoy's wife, Astoria Malfoy, as well as Nagini, who was infected with the Maledictus curse that eventually turned her into a snake permanently, which we can see play out in the Fantastic Beasts films and with some finality in the Harry Potter books. And this leads nicely onto our next dark magic detail here, as I also think this quest we undertake with Seb is how we will learn how to raise the Inferi in our pursuit of pushing the limits of the dark arts. And if you weren't aware, Inferi or Inferius was a dead body that had been reanimated by a dark wizard's curse, very similar to a zombie but distinct as it was created via a branch of dark arts called necromancy, with Voldemort famously having an army of them stashed away at the seaside lake where he kept his Salazar Slytherin's locket under guard. Now, in the recent dark magic trailer, we can see this Inferi almost awakening itself from the ground, like it's just been risen by a curse itself. But in the next scene, the mountain troll, who I presume we're directly up against here, is for some reason swinging his club at an Inferi and not at us, which begs the question, why would the troll be having a pop at the Inferi unless the Inferi is under the control of a dark wizard's curse, which in this case happens to be us? Now, there is a possibility that the Inferi could have just walked into its path of destruction, of course, but it's an unusual clip to show, especially as it's just a creature versus creature with no visible witch or wizard in play here. Additionally, this cave that Seb is exploring is presumed to be Salazar Slytherin's dungeon, and he is long dead, meaning that any Inferi that he had risen himself or stashed away would no longer work, unless another dark wizard has been and gone before us, because Sebastian does cast Incendio against one of the Inferi enemies in this clip, but there's also several docile Inferius which also look like they've just been reanimated. And an interesting Wizarding World lore fact here, Inferi were known to be antagonistic against their master, depending upon the strength of the necromancy involved and the ability of the witch or wizard in question. So perhaps we raise these corpses to save our own life against huge enemies like this mountain troll or other dark wizards in the trailer, and because we're still a dark wizard noob, we lose control of the Inferi in this trailer. Now, that's an enthusiastic theory there, but back to what Seb was chatting about, these unforgivable curses shouldn't be illegal if they're used to help save your life, which is definitely worth a ponder for sure. Now, as we briefly discussed, there's some official tips and tricks that have recently been released by the Hogwarts Legacy team in their field guide. So click the video on your screen right now to get the full breakdown, as it includes some brand new secrets, and I'll see you there in just a second. If you're still watching though, my big thanks to those of you who are in the Reloads Club and support me on YouTube via a membership, as well as Nika and Kev for helping me research this video. Coffee is on them, and I'll see you in the next video.